Oh, amazing. We are live. So, welcome, Kim, to our DIAC Day session. I think we're in the second week now. So, just quickly for everyone tuning in, DIAC Day is a series of talks and sessions that we're doing with builders in the DIAC space. DIAC stands for Defensive Acceleration, which is a term coined by Vitalik in his 2023 essay on My Techno Optimism, where he basically points out that technology acceleration is good and we want more of it. At the same time, there are also dangers to accelerating technology. If we don't look at those dangers, then we may end up in a world where humans don't retain their freedom and agency, particularly with the acceleration of AI, but also other technologies that are quite scary. And so, yeah, he kind of coined this philosophy to unite builders around this movement. And we're talking to some of them here. And today we have Kim from, what is the project called actually, Kim?
On-Chain City. It's great to be
On-Chain
here.
City. Yeah, great to have you. So yeah, can you tell me a little bit about what On-Chain City is about and how you end up working on it?
Yeah, happy to. First of all, I love the Zoo Switzerland community. It's been one of the most amazing community that helped me get to where I am. So just shout out to everyone making it happen. So on-chain city, the thesis is every single city will eventually come on-chain. But until we get there, we want to make interacting with government services extremely easy. This is like, applying for visas, setting up businesses, getting bank accounts, getting insurance, like all of the things that you need to just live your life. It's such an unnecessary bureaucracy. And so we're simplifying this using cryptography, using AI, and using all of the technology primitives that, the industry has created over the last 15 years to essentially like create this on-chain gateway that allows people to one-click access these services. And some background, I've sort of like lived my entire life on chain, and it is possible. Didn't use bank accounts or any of that stuff, but living in the digital world, like you still have to come offline at some point in time, and you still have to interact with these, government databases. And the idea of sovereignty kind of goes out the window the minute you reach like border control or immigration. Just like, please just take my passport and do whatever you need. Just like get me on the plane or get me into that country. And, as I was thinking this through, just from my challenges as an individual and seeing what we have, and also working with governments, I realized that we have all of the primitives to one, give access to the individual, but also satisfy the constraints of the government. And so like solving for both sides of the market is incredibly difficult, but it is possible. And so it's a fun challenge, and it's a great business opportunity as well. Like it's a, visa and stuff is not the most sexy thing, but it's one of the most in demand product that people have asked for.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw it with Switzerland, and getting visas for scholars and stuff was very difficult. We went in a little bit blue-eyed and saw that for a number of countries it was really difficult. We're a little bit spoiled at times in Switzerland, so we underestimated it. Yeah, so huge problem. And like you said, very challenging. Like, so where are you in that process, and like, how are you going about it?
Yeah. So within On-Chain City, because you can do everything within this platform, such as like get a visa, get your bank account, etc., everything becomes like a verifiable piece of information. And each thing that you do becomes context. And so what we are building out, like the most ambitious thing is this like generalized context graph. So as an individual builds up, like they stack proofs that, hey, Isla has been issued X visa, Isla has repaid this loan, Isla has done XYZ. We're running this experiment with some governments about building out this immigration API. So as opposed to going through the typical visa process, you would just call this API. to check if this individual had these like proofs and then issue
Yeah.
their visa instantly. And I always rant about it. Most of the issue with governments is literally database design and being able to validate things. It's why things take so long. Like processes take so long. It's because they have no context and no way to like verify these things, and so they have to send it to this other agency, etc. And so I think ZK proofs are like a very powerful piece of technology that
Yeah.
will be embedded in society. ZK proofs as well as credentials. My best mental model for it so far has been thinking about it like stable coins. It's not so much the L1, it's like the stable coin that, you know, is most used, has the highest liquidity, and that's what people, you know, flock towards. And it will be
Yeah.
the same thing for the proofs. Like, what credentials are people actually using to validate these things? So we're just currently building out the stack. We're doing a live demo here in Buenos Aires for Dev Connect. I'm really excited. We did a full FHE implementation of a visa flow of what
Congrats.
that might mean like, thank you, what that might mean like for someone to apply for their visa with this context graph and get issued that visa instantly and have that entire workflow run within a secure environment.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. And yeah, I mean, for everything we're thinking about with Zuzulu and Switzerland, this whole passport topic is hugely important. As I'm sure you're aware, we started with ZooPass in Zuzulu, and like the more we've been thinking about things with Switzerland, like the more this reputational side becomes really important. Building these proofs of exactly like, you know, was this person at Edge City? Was this person at Switzerland? What can they prove in terms of, um, let's say, social graph or experience graph that allows us to maybe shortcut their application or, yeah, make like faster judgments. So I totally see the use cases in many ways and areas.
Yeah. And actually, so I was just at the Citizenship Protocol residency here at Edge, and we were like, let's just make the context graph open source. Like, everyone
Amazing.
should be utilizing it because like individuals are very multidimensional, and you know, we go to different pop-up cities, we interact with different application, but these are all like different contexts that needs to be aggregated into one graph. And so it will be like a piece of open source technology.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. That's kind of one of the key topics for us as well is how do we actually support more open source and accelerate more amazing open source technology because open source and verifiability is going to be a key focus in how we get to the DIAC future. And yeah, so you're already going open source. Have you thought about funding and how open source relates to that? Will you be like building parts open source, parts closed source, or how are you thinking about it?
Yep. Great question. So we like went back and forth on this quite a bit. Building anything open source is incredibly hard to get funding for. But there's two sides to On-Chain City, right? There's the service side where, or like this, I guess, marketplace of some sort where you can access the service, you pay for your application fees, etc. And then the context layer, we can afford to have that open source because
Mhm.
there's all of these different services and utility. So that in itself become like a venture fundable thing.
Mhm.
And then, you know, other resources and as well as a community just rallying behind the open source side of things. So it was just like how to think creatively about commercialization, but then
Yeah.
also like building something that everyone can kind of use. So because we have the service layer, it definitely helps us on the funding side.
Amazing. That's cool to hear. Um, Another thing I wanted to pick up on, since you mentioned you were at Switzerland and it helped you, and you're now at Edge, like, can you talk a little about how it sounds like you've been through a few pop-up villages, how those have maybe supported your journey or what role they've played.
Yeah. I would say so it's just really the community and you like generally I'm by myself or with my partner thinking about these things and we're just like isolated. And so it's really nice to find others to talk about these things with. Specifically with Switzerland, what I really, really enjoyed is like the notion of sense making.
Mm,
Um, it's not like I didn't feel like I had to perform, like saying things, it didn't have to be structured a certain way. It's more like, does this thing make sense?
yeah.
And that is like incredibly important, especially if you're building something complex and it has multiple layers to it.
Mm,
So that was one. Secondly, I met Tomaj at Switzerland, and Tomaj has been extremely helpful in helping us to accelerate things. And so that would have never happened if I wasn't in that space, and that space essentially allowed for that. It was like small enough where we can have one-on-ones,
yeah.
but not too small where you can like meet the whole community. Um, being at
That's
Edge
Tomasz from.
from the EF.
Ah, okay, amazing.
Yeah,
That's so cool. Great to
yeah,
hear.
like it was awesome because like he just opened up his Telegram and just like introduced me to a bunch of people. I'm like, wow, like just like that. You just
Wow.
always a few degrees of separation to get you from point A to point B. And I think these communities really help bring together the right people um,
Mm,
to make this possible. Being at Edge City is also pretty good. It's a bit hectic, but it's nice. There's a few residencies happening, and I've kind of been bumping between a few.
yeah.
One of our colleague Chance and two other individuals are hosting the citizenship residency
Mm,
protocol. And it's nice to have a space to talk about things that you don't generally find individuals to talk about. Like, not everyone gets excited about immigration and visas. Like, it's
yeah.
really hard to find people that get excited about that. So I think that's super nice. Um,
That's
and
so
also,
true. Yeah.
yeah, and like I feel like each community has like its own thing, but everything affects everything. And coming from Zoo Switzerland to Edge has allowed me, like, put me in a very unique position where, like, okay, I can think about the privacy side of it, I can think about the technology side of it, and then I can think about, okay, how do we bring this to fruition in a way that like consumers can understand and there's no trade-offs on the UX and
Mm,
so forth. So um, I think it's pretty awesome. Like,
amazing.
I'm bullish pop-up cities.
Cool. Yeah, I also like one thing that really resonated about what you said was like having people that are willing to kind of riff and sense make with you without it being like a pitch kind of, or not having to be like always on pitch mode, which is, it sounds simple, but it is like deceptively unique kind of in terms of just being able to really like riff through things with a bunch of people that aren't in your immediate personal network, but
Yeah,
are still super open-minded and willing to chat.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I like the way how things are positioned as instead of it being like projects, it's more experiments. And I
Mm,
think just that, narrative framing in our head, like helps us to think, okay, this is an experiment, it's evolving. Other people will help better context on certain things and they can help you in that way and vice versa. And so, life is one big experiment at the end of the day. So I really appreciate that framing.
yeah. Awesome. So maybe like switching back to the DIAC topic, I'd be curious to hear like what DIAC means to you and like where you see yourselves in that world.
Um, DIAC means multiple things to me. It so growing up in the Caribbean, like just in general, I think we don't have access to a lot of things, and the world has generally felt out of reach for the most part.
Mm,
I discovered Ethereum back in 2014, 2015.
Mm.
And like that created my entire life, and created my trajectory. And so I've always like thought about how can we like accelerate access. And I know that's like a very vague word, but how can we just like open more opportunities for people using all of these technology primitives while, putting the being proactive and thinking about humanity and not building this like dystopian type system.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate the way Vitalik say like we over index a bit on dystopian and like under index on what are the possibilities. Because if you look at individuals in certain regions, right? Someone could be living in Nigeria or India, and they could just, build a protocol that allows them to actually like build, a product and build wealth and do things.
Yeah.
And there was never been a time where like that existed. It was the first time in history where you can just go online, do something using all of these technology primitives, solve a
Mm.
problem for someone else. And I think that's just incredible. And so like my whole life is basically dedicated to just like continuously like accelerating this and pushing the boundaries to see how far we can go while doing so in a way like that actually serves humanity.
Mm. I love that. It's a really meaningful personal story. Really appreciate you sharing, and can resonate a lot with that, like the positive side of this too, because and I think that is something from what I've picked up on. It is important to Vitalik, like that DIAC is not just about the defensive; it's also about the acceleration and about the like what are the positive sort of solar punk optimistic scenarios that we get to look forward to as well. So yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess another story time if you guys care to listen to my stories.
Anytime.
The I think one thing that, and I tweeted about this yesterday, I'm basically productizing my childhood trauma. So when when I was
This makes two of us.
um when I was younger, I always wanted to go to Disneyland,
Uh-huh.
and the one in the country that is very hard to get a visa for. I have two passports, one from Guyana, one from Barbados.
Mm.
I had applied for a visa and got rejected twice for, they didn't even say a reason. The third time, when I applied, I finally got my visa, but the whole way I got it was I had a friend that was part of like the army of some sort because I was
Mhm.
working for this crypto company that just got investment from this large entity, and they had a network. And I just asked them, I was like, can you call the Barbados embassy and ask them to give me a visa? It's like, you know who I am. And so it's this weird, like, delegated trust function
Yeah.
that happens in real life. And that's kind of what made me realize is that it's like lack of context that these
Mm.
systems have, right? Like they don't understand like what is that person's human capital? What is that person's
Mm.
like social layer? Like what
Yeah.
are they capable of? Right now, you have a passport, and that passport determines your entire life. It determines like what you get access to, and it really doesn't make any sense. And for the first time, we have better ways to express who we are. And if we do everything online and on chain, that could be used and could be verified.
Mm.
And that's kind of when it hit me that whoa, we actually, we really, really need to do it. So it all started from just getting rejected for my visa, but I eventually went to Disneyland, so I'm happy about that.
Amazing. Happy ending to that story.
Yeah.
Super cool. Um, I guess on the topic of like resolving trauma, what is something if you could sort of wave a magic wand in the builder ecosystem that you would like to see fixed or what you would like to see built?
Um, mm, that's a good question. I think I would love to see more of integration all of these primitives with things in the real world that move the needle. Um, Sometimes like myself included, like I just get carried away with the technology side and like that's incredibly important. But then figuring out how to actually implement and integrate and then have the conversations that move things forward is what I'd love to see more of. But I think that comes from just like the industry naturally maturing and like we have to lead by example. Like I can't just say this, I have to do it myself.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'd say more of that, more of like, the bridge from
Yeah.
the this world to the actual physical world that we live in.
Yeah, that's a really meaningful one for me too. I'm glad you mentioned that actually. Like, one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about the permanent hubs that are evolving out of like Zuzulu and many of these pop-up type movements is that I kind of see them as a really good bridge between the sort of experimental new ideas to the real world and like developing things to the point that they can actually be um, yeah, accelerate it into a real world scenario. And yeah, just when we sort of got started on all this, we read a paper talking about like, free social spaces, and that's exactly how they characterize them, as this sort of like niche, sheltered environment where you can build outside of kind of the harsh, wider world. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing to bring up, and something I also see as super important for the space. Yeah, maybe.
I can't wait till we
Oh,
have like a DX school of some sort because it's so incredible to see like kids come into these pop-up cities. I think like that's just the most fascinating thing. Imagine you have someone who like, you know, the computation of the knowledge is just like so compressed that they can learn so much at such a
yeah.
young age. Imagine what that individual goes on to do. And like that makes me
Mm.
very, very hopeful. And yeah, just having, as you said, having these spaces, incredibly important.
Oh man, I'm so many things that I could just want to pick up on. I have to go there. I think like my one of the things I love about the network of hubs idea is like I've always thought I want to have kids at some point, but I also want to keep being able to be mobile. And one of the things where my husband's kind of strict is like he doesn't want his kids to like have to move around all the time and like not have consistent friends. And it's like, well, if we have like a network of schools, then they will see each other consistently, like we do with our crypto conferences, kind of. So that kind of solves.
Sign me up. My kid will
Yeah.
definitely be there as well.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Two final questions. One, is there a DAC builder that you really admire or would like to suggest us to bring on?
Oh my God, there's so many. I think like the other builder is within our community as well. Anish Mohammed. He is a
Hmm.
cryptographer in the space. Anish is like a dear friend as well, and has been thinking about these things very deeply. Um, and very similar to me, we kind of like isolate and think about all these things in our head, and sometimes we can go crazy. And
Yeah.
having a forum to discuss these things openly, it's pretty cool. Like I think he's worked on BCIs before, and that's an incredibly important thing to talk about, especially with privacy technology. And BCI is becoming, a norm to some in some cases. So I'd nominate Anish.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, Anish is great. So I will reach out to him. I appreciate the nomination. And last one is, do you have any final message that you want to get across for people in the audience, and any handles and links that they should look for on Chain City and you?
Yeah, so onchain.city is a website. I'm 0x Kimberly on Twitter. As you can tell, my identity is just one with crypto. I have no way to compartmentalize. My final message is if you haven't as yet, please be at one of the Zuzalu or Ed Cities or Pop-Up City. Like, it's one of the best experiences that I've had. And so I think everyone should visit one at some point in their life.
Second that. Thank you, Kim. Great having you on. And yeah, everybody check out On-Chain City and keep your eyes open for what's coming, because I think it's very important infrastructure you're building there, Kim, and really hope that it accelerates as fast as possible.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks.
See you.
Ciao.